in most spaces is girls 15 to 25 and women 25 to 40 plus. And these women, we find them in the communities, we find them in universities, we find them in the workplace and in the general spaces where they are. What are we all looking at? What are we all geared to achieving? A pipeline of leaders by 2025, which is next year, but which is this year. And we're targeting 1 million mentees and 10,000 mentors. And Rita, who's part of our M&E team who leads, will take us through some of those details and especially why and how they play into the module for running for office and public service. And then we're very intentional that our women, the mentors and mentees who go through the program must be able to take action and must be able to lead in the spaces that they are in. So I will stop sharing now. And I've introduced who we are. I've introduced Girls for Girls. And now I want to know who you are. We are going to start a Mentimeter. And this Mentimeter will allow each and every one of you to contribute to this conversation. We're going to hear your voices in due course, but we're going to know your names, we're going to know where you're from, and we're going to know really what are your perceptions about this topic that we're going to have a deep dive in. So Santa has shared the Mentimeter link in the chat. Santa, you're also free to share your screen. I know some people prefer to scan it, but if you're using a laptop, just click on that link to the Mentimeter. And if you are using your phone, Santa, yes, make the screen wide. You can just scan that QR code and you'll be able to immediately begin to get the QR code, link in and share. So far we have 13 responses. It's lovely to see, Uganda showing up. It's lovely to see Kenya. Habari to all our sisters in Kenya, Malaysia. We salute you, we greet you, and Kazakhstan. Wow. I know you, one of the countries which had just launched not so long ago. We celebrate you. Thank you for coming to our global village. South Africa, we greet you. Wow, I'm waiting. Oh, Zimbabwe, wonderful. Welcome to this conversation. Lesotho, how are you? How do you say how are you in Lesotho? In Sotho language. Can our sister from
Lesotho?
Wow. And how do we respond?
Ke phela hantle mme, and then you say wena o phela jwang.
You've heard it from my lips. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Santa, thank you so much. Can we go to the next question? The next question. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you for telling us where you're from. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. In one word, how would you describe public service and running for office? And one word which comes out strongly is empowering, leading, advocacy, leadership is coming out strongly, courage, it's showing up bold, educative. I'm looking for some dirty word, dirty business. Rita Allen, I hope you're picking those up. For men, okay? Help, I almost see that help, coming up, putting its hand up. Sexism, attainable, that's power. Meritocracy, what does that even mean, for somebody? But influence, opportunity, very powerful words. Thank you so much, ladies. We have 76 responses, 80 responses, and we're just learning from you as much as we're learning from each other. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rank your grasping and understanding of the content of public service and running for office? And there you can see we have moderate understanding showing up strong. And ladies, I know by the end of this, each and every one of you will say and will be able to teach another person what this module is about and how it directly can impact you. Thank you, Santa. We'll go quickly to the next question. Yes, how confident are you in applying the lessons learned from public service and running for office? And I'm smiling because the comments, the responses are reducing, but thank you so much for those who have confidently sent in yours. I like that. Good confidence is at 12, moderately confidence. And we have 4 very strong people who are at that. Santa, the last question. Yes. What is your perception, bias around public service and running for office? Now we're talking about scary, undermined women. And interestingly, one of the questions that came in from you are the people who are attending. One question was clear around why do women make bad bosses? So we're going to tackle that also. Again, I see for men only, corruption, masculine, male-dominated, men only. Yeah, I see that coming out strongly. But I see words like important, giving too much, requires courage, scary again. Scary is really politics. I couldn't ignore that. It's right in front of me. So thank you so much, ladies. Santa, last question. I believe this is the last question. And we're going to take your thoughts, ladies, and we're going to share them in the next part of our conversation. So I introduced Alan, and I'll invite Alan, who was part of the founders of Girls for Girls. When they left Harvard, what were you thinking when you built this module into the program? Or is it that you built the program around this module? Thank you so much, Alan. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies. A good morning from Nairobi, where the sun is shining. Ladies, when you hear Diana talking like that, you don't know what earthquakes have been moving. Rita, Diana, Santa, Gloria, all trying to sort out our systems. We were going on live, and then things were not live. And then, there was a whole lot of, undercurrents there. And you can imagine 3-4 strong women all trying to give advice. It was almost like, I don't know, Hell's Kitchen. There was a lot of noise and do this. So finally, we calmed down, and here we are. So good morning. I know we have such a packed agenda. We have so little time. I don't even know what we'll do. We might have to ask you for a few extra minutes to get the conversation going. But yes, when we started G4G, and I've told this story so many times, we were all looking, and Izana is on, and so many. We were at a very interesting time in the US when elections were running. I've told that story so many times. Hillary was running. For me, at least, we all have our different motivations. But for me, I remember campaigning for Hillary door to door and wondering why these white men and others were not giving Hillary the opportunity only because of her emails. That thing shook me. Trump had all these 6 steps. Hillary had the emails, and guess who they selected? Trump. And again, they selected Trump again this recent year. So there's something we're not getting. But I think the second thing that was powerful at the Harvard Kennedy School, it's all about service. It's the famous quote, ask not what your state can do, ask what you can do. Because in Uganda, those who are here, they know the famous saying, we are waiting for government to help us. It's to serve a government for everything, the potholes, the roads, the what. Of course, government is the primary duty bearer. But what has happened is we as citizens, we also just say, let's wait for government to help us. So we become powerless, we become victims, and yet there's so much agency and power that we can have. And so there's one course we were doing at Harvard, which was called From Harvard to the Oval Office, which was really about getting women into power positions of leadership. Because in G4G, we have what we call courageous leadership, which is about non-positional leadership. It's about personal leadership. Who you are. Who are you without your title? Debbie, I can see your face so clearly. Who are you without the title of Mrs., of head of this, of that, that? Who are you? Who is Alan without all these amazing titles I have? That is what courageous leadership is about. But we also recognize that you need a space for positional leadership. We know that we have a huge battle to fight as women. We have to reach a certain goal for women's equality to happen. And numbers are critical. We have to have a critical mass. We need to get women into positions where they're able to influence, decisions, where they're able to influence allocation of resources, where they're able to influence practice. I know for a fact that the positions I hold at Trademark Africa as the Deputy CEO, Chief of Programs, overseeing a budget of $100 million a year, I have influence. I can decide. I can challenge. I can inform. I wouldn't be able to do that if I did not have the positions I hold. So for us, we are about positional leadership in addition to courageous leadership. Those are the two differences. The other one is personal, this one is positional, and both go hand in hand. And so for G4G, we are not even shy about it. We know that if we do not put women in positions of power, the goals we are trying to attain remain very far, but we are seeing all the challenges, and Rita will go into the challenges. This module is one of those that is least understood. So when we were at Harvard, the focus initially was political leadership, because we're saying political leadership is the space in which we're able to influence so much, the laws, the bylaws, the policies. But we also knew that, for instance, our friend in Iceland, she recently ran for president. She said, you guys, first in Iceland, we have women in politics. The first female president in the world came from Iceland, but we don't have women in business. Women in business are so far behind. Women in business are not on boards. Women are not in management suites. Women are not in places where they can inform and influence. We still find women being secondary to men in the business world. So it's about all spaces. It's the political space. It's the business sense space, it's the NGO space. And the numbers are so daunting. You look everywhere. In Africa, for those of us who are in Africa, we have just seen a miracle. In Namibia, we have the first female president who has selected a vice president who is female, and even the speaker is female. We're not saying we don't have space for men. We want men to lead side by side with women. But what we see around the world is that you will have that, and it's the norm. Men as president, vice president, speaker, all positions are held by men. Here we are starting to see a change. It's not going as fast as we want, but we are seeing women taking up space. In Malaysia, Izana shared has numbers around women in boards. We have seen women get onto boards in Malaysia. I think in 2016, you had around 16%, and now you have 33% of boards, especially public boards, have women. When I talk about public boards, it's your utility boards, it's your parastatals, it's those boards that take decisions for everyday people. Who is deciding? Who is taking those decisions for utilities like water, electricity? If you're in South Africa, who is on the board of ESCOM? Often you find it's men. So we are fighting, but we are saying we are getting there. I have seen the numbers shift in the last 7 years of G4G. I have seen women get into associations. I have lawyers associations, human resource associations, all that, any space where you can make a difference, where you can influence, where you can hold resources and assign resources. We want women in those spaces. I hope I've made my point clear. That is what we are for at G4G. We want women to have both the courage to take action. We want women to, want to have the numbers for women to be able to take decisions, but it's not just the numbers. And Rita will talk more about this. We want to go beyond the numbers. What action can you take when you hold that position? How judiciously do you hold that position? Do you hold that position for good or for bad? Do you hold it for the community or for for yourself? We want women to be in positions where they are able to serve the community, not about ourselves. You have to use that position judiciously. And we'll see the perceptions you've read about women being bad bosses, about women being what. Some of them are realities, but some of them are biases, and we'll go into those. I shudder to think that as a female boss at the top of over 200 staff, that I may be, people may be saying, oh my God, what a BITCH we have, I'm like, but I'm a good person and I do decisions judiciously, but it's what it is. The perceptions are there and the realities are there. So back to you, Diana, in the studio.
Thank you so much, Alan. And I remember how empowering it was for me to realize that positional leadership goes as far as if you're the firstborn in your family. That's a title. If you're the fifth born in your family, like I am, that's a position. And how do I leverage it? But in your community, if you're the leader in your choir, if you're the leader in your university group, that is a position. And how do you exercise this? So position does not have to wait for when you're president. It starts now. And each of us is holding a position as a mother, as a sister, as an office employee, with a desk and an ability to sign off something. So all of us are living under this umbrella, this module of public service and running for office. So Rita, I would like to invite you to share. You look at the data, you look at the numbers, you get all these conversations going. Tell us, what are the numbers saying about how we perceive this module?
So let's, I think I'm a bit concerned because I think we have some people who are not mentors, therefore they have not yet delivered this session. So just to make sure we are all on the same path, when we deliver the modules, there is some background reading, and this is very relevant for this particular discussion. There's some background reading research that we give the young ladies in the form of videos. So there's a Harvard professor who talks about the importance of running for office and public service. It is an American professor. I'm giving you context. And the examples he gives are very much what Alan talked about, because at that point in time, it was the political aspect that was very important. So what we have found is that when G4G was rolled out, there was almost a natural affinity for people wanting to understand how to build trust amongst women. That's session module number 1. There was a natural affinity for anyone who had signed up to want to understand how to be a courageous leader, not just to spout and understand leadership principles, but to be able to act on the leadership. Very appealing to the young girls, or the young women, or some of us even the older women, because I know in Uganda, there's a group for over 40s. When the third module is about the art of communication. How do you articulate your agenda? Once you've determined, I want to be a leader, this is what I want to do, but how do you present and how do you position your agenda? How are you clear, persuasive, and inspirational about your message? All very appealing. Then we come to negotiation. Also very appealing, because now you're able to say, this is what I want, this is how I get others to support me. And I think this is where we begin to enter public service without us knowing. Because that session on negotiation, and Alan always reminds us, it is called negotiating for self and for others. So the G4G at that point introduces the idea. And this is where we as mentors really need to start placing the emphasis. It's a journey we are walking, that now you've been empowered as to be a leader. What are you going to do for other people? And I think this is where we start to have a problem, that there's no nice transition between, moving from the self, like Alan has said. It's not about selfish leadership, but also what can you do for others? We need to transition it nicely. So allow me to share the slides. This is the one slide that actually led to this discussion. Like Diana said, I do monitoring and evaluation. So what we normally do is we analyze, we take a step back after a year or two. This graphic is an analysis of which modules share skills with the mentees in our G4G program that they most apply. So we've been capturing data in South Africa since 2019. So you can see the performance of the different modules. So the first is about building trust. Courageous leadership and the art of communication, very popular. Same with negotiation. But something happens when we come to public service. So there's a break in the journey I have just described. There's a problem. When we did the analysis, and then it picks up again on ethics and values. So when we looked at the data this year, I told Alan, there's something wrong. And that's why we decided to have this discussion. I took a quotation that literally from the words and the lips of one of the mentors, what she entered to explain why she thinks running for office and public service is not a popular module. She said, the course material is outdated, considering the association and relevance to South Africa and South Africans. So remember, this is a mentor in South Africa. It needs to be made relevant, local, and the videos and messages should be shared with local representation. Public office is a very American focus, yet this goes beyond public office. So she criticizes, but at the same time, she is almost telling us what it is that we need to fix. That's why we are having this discussion. So the conversation, I think, is coming from an acceptance and an acknowledgement. You have said it yourselves when we asked, what do you think about this session? What are the biases around it? So the first is the fact that it's an American concept, that running for office, I think it's the articulation of the words. Running for office sounds very American. But in truth, there's a fundamental fear that we face as women. A good girl does not put her hand up and say, I can see a problem and this is how I want to fix it. So there's an inherent issue that psychologically we need to overcome. And that is why we have sessions like this. Because you ask, if someone did not run for office, if someone did not put their hand up for the political space, where would we be? Where would Joyce Banda of Malawi be? Where would Ellen Sirleaf Johnson of Liberia be? Netumbo Ndaitwa in Namibia that Alan has just been talking about. Those women who are there, if they had not stepped into the political realm, we would never see them and would forever be dominated by males. And yes, maybe not all of us are couched or positioned to be political leaders, but there's some of us in the cohorts that we are running who are positioned to be political leaders. So we should be able to identify the mentees and encourage them on the journey. So I think the point is, when we are engaging in the cohorts, it's not to say all of us must be political leaders. No, it's to encourage people to say, here are the options of leadership. One of them is political. Why do we need political? Because for things to change, we need policies, laws, regulations to change. That is the political realm. So we need that to happen. So yes, it perceives as political, but it's definitely something that we need to recognize that we have to play in that space. I was looking at the words, that were put up there. Politics is equated to being dirty. If you saw some of the responses that went up, but maybe that's the advantage that we want to see that we can bring. We can come and clean up politics. We know it's not an easy thing to do. So it's a myth that needs to be addressed, but definitely one that keeps on coming out. The other myth that we tend to hear, and I think, again, Alan, it's in relation to the wording. Public sector, it's as if you can only lead, the leadership that we're talking about at G4G can only be done in the public space. But that is not true. All of us in our respective companies, when you lead a team, even at home, because all of us have some level of influence. I'm an older sister. My siblings come to me. I have influence over what my nephews and nieces study, where they go to school and things like that. So the other myth that we need to address is the fact that it's not only about, a highly visible public space. Each of us in our own right, once you've gone through modules 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're already a leader. The trick now is to say, I'm stepping up for my society. I'm recognizing that there are problems around me that I then need to address. I'm going this route because I'm trying to share how we need to approach this module when we're explaining it to the young ladies. Not during module 5, the delivery, but in the journey as we come towards module 5. Then maybe we will not see a drop off in people attending the module 5. The other myth, looking through some of the feedback that we have received, is that G4G can do without module 5. But is that true? How will we then differentiate G4G from every other leadership program? The beauty, and for me, my marketing pitch about G4G is always the fact that we are growing leaders. We are building a pipeline of leaders, not for themselves, not for their selfish selves, but rather to serve our society and make sure that we're able to make a change. So that one I outright rebuff. It is a myth. And what it means is that we need to step up to the challenge in terms of how we can then better deliver module 5. So those are the key myths that have come out. That is the data supporting the myths that we have seen, Diana. And later on, we will be talking about, I will be able to share some of the most successful cohorts on our side, where we have not only successfully delivered on Module 5 public service, we've actually seen our mentees go on to deliver public service in their own interpretation, not being a Indira Gandhi or anything like that, but in their own small communities, more immediate circles, being able to start the journey of public service and hopefully continuing to grow forward. So those are the myths that are coming out, and I think that's what we need to be addressing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. All right, ladies, when we were first asked the question, what perceptions, you feel, how confident you feel about this topic? Can I now see some more comments in the chat? Just put from a scale of 1 to 5. After hearing Alan talk about the fact that we need positional leaders to take responsibility, resources, and hearing Rita talk about the fact that, yes, this module has been framed, in the videos to look like a foreign module, but it applies to you, and that they're real stories of change. What is your experience? If you're a mentor, I know Debbie, you're a mentor. I know Anne, I've seen you sharing some comments. Joanne, please just post a scale of 1 to 5. Yeah, how confident are you now about this module? Thank you. Thank you so much, Dube. Yes, thank you. Okay. I like that. Yes, great, great. I can see that at least we're definitely up there. So there's 3. So you're lucky. Those are 3. We still have some time together. And I know that we will deep dive and get more. I have an interesting question. If we were to rename this module, yeah. So Rita said, the lady, the mentor was saying, let it be more relatable. Let it speak more to us. If you were to rename this module, can you give me some names? Let me hear some interesting modules for this name. Be that driver, be that leader who gives us a new name. Okay, taking up leadership positions. Justine, thank you so much for that. Taking up leadership positions. Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing more. Alan, I hope you're taking note. Women in leadership. Yeah. Rita said, if we are a leadership mentorship program, what is it about our program that sets it apart? So this model being called Women in Leadership, will it allow us to look at a deep dive, the political, the NGO, positional leadership, how we come off, how we're perceived? All right, thank you. Connie, positional leadership. Yeah. Pamela, women in leadership. Again, you like that. Okay. Alan, I like that. You're questioning, If you have countries, yes, Rita.
I just wanted to say something. I think, Alan talked about the fact that it's about positional leadership. But I think it's also important to recognize that position is with quotations, because that position can be formal. You are a chief executive officer, you're a board member, but it can also be informal. And I think that's where we need, especially for the younger mentees, we need to start. There's informal leadership, and we see it. There's a young lady who shared in the evaluation report. They had no water during COVID. She wrote to the counselor, and you can imagine all of them were behind the walls. And she was like, please, we need fresh water. Yeah. No one appointed her. She stepped up. So I think for me, the positional will have to be very explicit that positional means both formal leadership and informal leadership. I see Alan wants to say something.
Can I step in? Position. Yes, remember, Rita, courageous leadership is about taking action. When we do the baselines, we find I've talked about thousands and thousands of girls whose baselines we hold, and women in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 40s. We all have a dream. If I were to ask anyone here, I'm turning 52 this year, I still have amazing dreams, Every woman, every girl has a dream, but the dreams die along the way. And so courageous leadership is about action. It's about personal leadership. It's that young girl saying, gosh, I don't have to wait for the mayor. I can actually trigger the mayor. That is courage. That is taking action. It's that action to do the application. So we need to make a distinction, because we should not shy away from the power that comes with position. That's why Module 5 for me is so critical. Power comes with position. And we will dive into some of the positional things we have changed in the world. I have been able to lead so many things, not by virtue because of I'm Alan and having formal power, but because I have positional leadership. Let me give you an example. I always give this to the staff at work. The lady who buys our toilet paper has power. She's the lady who she has the lowest position as an office assistant, but she has the biggest power on what tea we take, whether rooibos, Earl Grey, hibiscus. She has the power on whether we use 1-ply tissue or 3-ply. In fact, I used to ask, who buys this tissue? They would buy 1-ply. I said, gosh, get us 3-ply tissue for heaven's sake, That person holds informal power in the organization. She's not titled, but she has informal power. But I hold formal power. I am able to take decisions. I am able to challenge. I'm able to say, no, $2 million, move it here. Do you see? That's why this module is distinct for its position and service. And that's why we put the two together. Public service, running for office. So public service, if I'm president of Rotary, I can make a decision. If I am a treasurer in my savings group, I can, if I am this in the church, in the mosque, I can make a decision. I once told the story as well of women in a fish market. They were the ones doing the business in Busia, at the border between Uganda and Kenya. Then we asked, can we see the leaders of the market? Shock of all shock. 23 men came out of a small uniport, a small office. 23. They're the ones controlling whether you have a creche, a nursery. They're the ones controlling whether you have toilets with running water. They're the ones who were deciding. But who was in the market working? Who held all the power around the fish? The women. Who held the position? The men. So this module is about position and
so
service.
Sometimes you create the position. And
Yeah.
because the circumstances not, let me give you the example of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Who was Winnie? What was her position? Do you see what I'm saying? That there are times when you're thrust into a role, or there's an opportunity for a woman to give service, and the circumstances do not necessarily accord you a title. Take Asnath Mahapa of South Africa, the first Black woman to become a pilot in South Africa. No one has given her a title, a badge, a position, but look at the amazing work that she's doing, championing women in science. So it's in a way, it's a subtle position because we recognize her, we quote her. She's written about in books and newspapers, but no one then says, this is what you so, and I think there's that gray area whereby we need to recognize, because in that, I think the most important thing is, are you serving society? So there's that, and that's why I said there's a balance. There's a formal, positional leadership, but I think we need to recognize that potentially there's space for the informal ones who are in that space. The important thing for me is not someone has given me a title. The important thing for me is that you are using your leadership for others. And that's why I still am biased. I love that title, but they're running for office and public service. But okay, Diana, back to you.
All right, thank you. I hope Izana, head of global, you're picking up something. The ladies from Kyrgyzstan, I hope you're picking up some things. I know the conversation has been really focused on the continent, but I would like to open it up. And I would like you, just as leaders in this room, if you really have a story to share about how your perception turned concerning this, I'd like to invite you into the conversation at this space. I see, Patience, I see Connie, I see Anne, Peace, names I know, but I also see so many names who represent wonderful women I don't know. So please feel free, just put up your hand. We want to hear from you. How have your perceptions changed? What has been your experience? And if you can't, or just type that out in a chat. And I'm calling, of course, for courageous leaders. I don't see anyone's hand up yet, but please be bold. And I want to share my personal story. I remember that Alan came and told me to escort her to a mentorship program on negotiation at a high school in Uganda. And I remember when I went to escort her, I thought to myself, I know this stuff. I'm a lawyer, I can talk to them. And when I got there, I sat in the audience with those young girls and I learned as much. And then I kept seeing Alan sort of running with Girls for Girls. And at some point, she then said, I'm traveling, I'm moving out of Uganda, I'm moving to settle in Nairobi, Kenya. And because I had seen the energy and I had seen the impact, I remember, Rita, you came to speak to young girls in a school called Namagunga. And because you spoke to them about courageous leadership, they took up ownership to help sponsor more vulnerable girls in their community. I said, there's something here, there's power here. So when Alan stepped out of Uganda, I volunteered. And I remember reaching out to another volunteer called Stella Kivila. And I said, Stella, let's lead BNI Uganda. So there was no position, there was no title, but I said, let's champion, let's lead. And that's how I became country lead Girls for Girls. Those of you who know, it wasn't because I was appointed and a hand was, a baton was passed. I stepped up and volunteered. But one transformational incident, Anita, thank you for your hand. I see it and I welcome you, is that we had a group of women in the Human Resource Managers Association of Uganda. And Joy, I saw you on the call. They stood up and ran for office. And Girls for Girls, mentors and mentees, they took up over 5 roles in a committee of about 9. All these women came from Girls for Girls. All of them had been transformed by leading for office, this module, by understanding that position carries power. And if you're to create change from the inside, sometimes you need to take charge. And I was so inspired that the year after, I ran for office in the Law Society of Uganda. So for me, just being in this community has helped me unpack so much and has helped me recognize that if you want to be part of the change, you must take a positional leadership. You must be able to own the process. So ladies, please feel free to share your story. I'd love to hear stories from outside the continent. And Anita, where you will go first, and then Annie will go first. 1 minute each. Please keep it short so that we can hear more ladies. Thank you. Izana, if you're still there.
Good morning, everyone.
Anita.
And if you recognize the background, it's because I am at Sunshine's place. But Diana, thank you very much. I think for me, two things. One incident was when Alan, I was trying to, I wanted to do something about women at work, but I didn't know how to start. And I remember Alan telling me, I said, I don't have power. No one has appointed me. I need someone to give me a letter or something to say, take up this position to lead women causes. And she said, nobody has to give you power. You have to step up. That was when I stepped up. Number two is listening to a guest speaker, Vivian Dambia. I've never met her, but she left an impact on me. She said, look, you people complain and keep talking about the government and all that's not going well. If nobody steps up, if none of us steps up to work in government, then how is anything going to change? You're the strong people. You're the ones who wield the power. You're the ones who know what to change. If you do not step up to these positions, what will change? And I think for me, that was a call for me to just say, where can I take up leadership spaces? However small, however big, where God has placed me, whichever community I'm in, how can I take up a leadership space? So that's what I wanted to say about, positional leadership and non-positional leadership and, running for public office. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. Anne, I'd invite you to join the conversation.
Thank you so much, Dana. Thank you, ladies. I have my BNI background, you forgive that. My reflection on this is the realization that I can do something about a situation wherever I am. I have the tools. It can be information, it can be advocacy, it can be real action. In my neighborhood, we have a lady that went through this program. I invited her to Girls for Girls, and she rallied the community to fix a bad patch. Our cars were always getting stuck there. She didn't have a position. She was not the LC. She went door to door and explained and said, this is the situation. We need so much money. There is a contractor a few kilometers from here. How can we do this together? People rallied up, and that point is no longer bad. So it's the realization that, yes, I have the tools. I'm in this place. I'm in the community. Let me take action. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anne.
Diana, can I just now add, because you see, no one gave her the title, but she stepped up. Now, what happens is that her influence is growing, that lady who stepped up. And if a position ever comes up, whether it's environmental leader or, roads, someone who worries about social activities in the neighborhood, guess who candidate number one is going to be? Now she can transition into the official position once it is created. So this is what I think is important to be able to recognize, that sometimes we can even create these positions to come into being because of what we do, using the skills that we have learned from the earlier modules.
Thank you so much. All right, Kim, and then Dube, I'll invite you, Aliyah, just to unmute 1 minute, and then Alan and Rita, I'll be coming back to you to pick up again. So Kim, yes, thank you.
Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Anastasia and I'm from Kazakhstan. So I just wanted to talk about the running for office and courageous leadership in the context of our country. And actually, we have recently done a mentee recruitment. And after the training with you, Rita, me and Saganish, we did a good evaluation of what were the needs of the mentees who responded to the program. And we had an incredible response, actually. We didn't even, we did expect a great response, but not such a huge response as we had. So one of the biggest things that we noticed across both mentees and potential mentor candidates was that everyone, almost in 95%, the biggest issue that women had was and imposter syndrome and lack of confidence. So in Kazakhstan, usually a woman is not expected to express her power or influence vividly. It's not encouraged by society, and that causes the reality when a woman, despite her being a formal and informal leader, is not bold or brave enough, or is not encouraged by society to talk about it. And in the case of Kazakhstan, for example, I would like to actually give a spotlight to one of my colleagues who is present today on the training. Her name is Dinara. And Dinara has recently been officially appointed as a chief of staff at the Astana International Finance Center, which is a quasi-governmental organization working very closely with the president of Kazakhstan, building up an infrastructure, financial infrastructure for the country. And despite, I've known Dinara for many years, and despite her being, building her career from the very beginning, from being just a line employee to becoming, to transcend to that senior leadership role, she is still humble about talking about it. And that is kind of a very good example of how almost every woman in Kazakhstan feels. Even if she is in a formal leadership position or in an informal leadership position. So congratulations, Dinara. I would like you to, if you're here, I would like you to maybe say a couple of words.
Okay.
Okay, maybe she's, perhaps she.
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies. Anastasia, thank you very much. Thank you, girls, for your congratulations. I cannot switch off on the video, but thank you. It was this training particularly made me think that I should be more vivid with more bold on this. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Nastya.
Thank you so much, Dinara. All right, Alia, I'll invite you to speak, and then Pamela, just type your question in the chat and we will pick it up. Alia, yes, just share very...
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Alia Dube and I'm speaking from South Africa. I love the whole concept, how it was explained, public service and running for office, which is something that I had experienced when I was a mentee back in 2022. I had witnessed a GBV case in my neighborhood, and I realized that I had to take up action. So this module actually helped me to become, I was appointed as a youth advisory board member in one of South Africa's greatest platforms called Gender Rights in Tech. So I do believe that you have to take up positions in order to make change. And I do believe that having a vision to grow in leadership and serve and to give back by identifying certain platforms, because platforms are out there. It's for us to take up leadership and seek them. Like I did myself, I witnessed one of the most sad things. GBV is, like, South Africa has the highest cases in GBV in the world even. So I had to take up leadership, and being appointed as a youth advisory board member was something very important to me. So I love the whole module. G4G actually helped me in getting this position. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll just pick up on one thing you said, Alia, and you said G4G helped me. And what I believe, ladies, we should never forget is that the reason why Module 5 is where it is because a mentee who joins the program, a mentor who joins the program, is able to build up from building trust, from trusting themselves, from finding within them the courage to take action, recognizing their informal power, and is able to communicate and then negotiate for themselves and others. And by the time they reach Module 5, ideally, they're beginning to understand the impact of leadership, the impact of positional leadership, and they're willing and ready to say yes to leading. So it sort of has a very strong foundation. It has a very strong foundation on which we can pivot. So Alan and Rita, there's one question in the chat around how do you transition from informal to formal, and you'll both address it. But the question I want you to both tackle, sharing your thoughts, sharing a lot, is what changes? You know, you have the formal position of power. What changes can we make to ensure this module speaks to our audience, to our mentors and mentees, looking at the appreciation of the different contexts we're leading in, we're serving in, and also understanding how we move even beyond position of power and actually take and create change. So Alan, I'll invite you to share first, and then Rita, I'll invite you to share, and then we will close this session.
Thanks so much, Diana. I really want to beg for a few extra minutes because there are some biases. There are things that are keeping women away from Module 5. In fact, there are countries I've worked with, like Brunei, and said, no, we don't even touch Module 5. We had removed it. I've talked to countries who, yes, some countries have removed it. And I was like, why? Which girls are you mentoring? Oh, university students. I said, okay, don't they become course leaders? Don't they become, because in Brunei, they felt women they don't want to discuss politics and all that. I said, it's not about politics. So the first thing, Diana, in shifting, I think the misperceptions, misconceptions, we have to be very clear upfront. People have talked also about connecting from the beginning. Right from the beginning, we really talk about what it is we do. But I think even in terms of the training materials, we are going to have to see how we further develop the training materials based on different contexts. Kim has talked about Kazakhstan, where women are not visible, they are not, vivid. You try to stay in the background, know your position. So we are going to have to see how we can make contextual, but also bring out the element of service about this position and title being for use by others. So for me, it's a lot of things that we could do in the training, starting right from the training to make sure that people really understand. This deep dive is also another key one. But I think what I will not do is be shy away from removing this from the program, because we've had a few calls. I remember even with Zana, we had this whole discussion, and Malaysia finally changed the name. They focus a lot more on the service aspect, but truth be told, they are doing so much on the political front as well. So service, when I say service, it's things like on boards, it's things like Rotary, it's in the mosques, in the churches. So for me, we will see how we can rejig the material. But before we leave, I hope we can get a few more minutes to talk about, for instance, the whole issue in the corporate sector about the misconception or the reality of women being bad leaders. I say that because I sit on a corporate board of a bank, and I have seen how women have struggled to get into those positions. First, because they fear it's hard work. We have struggled to get young women into positions, say, as managers, branch managers, because you have to go to the field. You hear about the young women in STEM, in telco. How will you become a telco manager if you've not climbed the pole? How will you be an engineer manager if you've not built a road in the rural countryside? And many women fall off the wayside because of that. If you're not tested in the field, they're never going to give you the position. If they are putting you in the call center, they will always say, oh, Alan doesn't have the practical experience. But because they always think you're soft, they will give you the softer things. And so when the opportunity comes for the real meaty job, no one is going to give you that opportunity. But when we talk about bad bosses, female bosses, let me tell you, at times it's a misconception. One thing I've learned from the women's movement is I have seen women hurt so much by the pain they have gone through, and then they turn this hurt onto others. What do we say about hurting animals? They claw and they turn back. And so we are trying to say, let's ease the pain. Do not allow yourself to be the only woman in a position for long. First woman, first black woman, first engineer. Make sure you build villages, and that's G4G. Put people around you, light your candle, grow others, have a whole constituency of people who you can fall back on when you need them. But there's also what I have decided to term bad manners. There are people who are simply badly behaved. They will shout at their staff. They will abuse. They'll use abusive language. That can be either male or women. It's not necessarily a gendered thing for women. So we have to try and address those perceptions so that we can encourage more girls and women into these positions, because positions matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Quickly touch on transitioning from informal to formal, the politics, the conflict you find there, and the revert back to, you know what, I'll let them lead at that point. How do you help mentees overcome this? How do we face this challenge?
Is that for me, from informal to formal?
Yes.
It's those platforms, like we've talked about in this discussion. At times, there are platforms. So you will know, like Alia has talked about, oh, there was this position. I decided to go for it because I want to do something about GBV. But at times, there's no position and there's no space, and you create it. And so I've seen people create it. I created G4G with Izana. Did we need permission? See how global it has become. It's in over 40 countries. We have created an organization, and that is also some action that you can take, you see. So for transitioning from the informal to the formal, first of all, it needs, yesterday we talked about the whole issue around your vision, what it is you want to achieve, what are the spaces that are there that can allow you to achieve it. And I'm so grateful to all the women who have joined G4G, seeing it as a platform where they can achieve their own missions and visions around empowering girls. But if you find that there's no space that you can utilize, create it. We've always heard about the Shirley, was she Shirley from the US, the first president candidate, who very famously said, if they don't give you space at the table, at times you may need to create your own table. So there you have it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Rita, as you come in, just start with the difficult conversation around politics. When you transition from informal to formal, there's the real, you get in and it's a different space. How do you navigate that tight, those spaces? And then take it.
So I think it goes back to, someone talked about the imposter syndrome. It's something that it never goes away. Even Alan, all of us who are in these positions, right? So it's something that we will always face. One way of managing this, because it comes, and the reason I'm talking about the imposter syndrome, especially, is particularly big at political level. So the reason why I like this concept of transitioning from the informal into the formal is that it allows one to start getting used to being in that leadership space. You start taking decisions, you see some people like them, others don't like them. You get tested, right? But you're beginning to become comfortable in the leadership space. And there will always be people who will be against you. It's almost like you're ramping up, you're building yourself up to be able to take, the bigger challenges that are going to come in the political space. I can see my internet is showing that I'm unstable. Can you hear me? Okay. So for me, it's about, that's why I think even to become a political leader, let's think about it. Do you suddenly land one day and then you're voted into office? No, you have to build, you have to cultivate, isn't it? You have to be good at something. And I think we've had this conversation. I keep on telling the young people, you have to have a certain value. Either there's a technical skill or expertise that you're good at, so that you establish yourself, you entrench yourself. Then people can say, you know what? Alan is a thought generator in this particular area. So informally, people start to look at you for leadership. When the political position comes aboard, or when the board position becomes available, or when the chief executive or chief finance officer comes on board, guess what? Not only do you have the technical skills so that you're respected, and I'm going to talk about the SEX, which someone is saying, why are we not talking about it? And once you have that technical skill, they can't disrespect you. And yes, neither can someone say to you, let's go have SEX because I need to help you. You don't need that, right? Because you've established and you've entrenched yourself, and you've now started being able to buffer off the different things that are going to come. By the time the position comes available, you've already got your constituency who is supporting you. So that's the way that I see it, that what we do in the precursor, in the informal positions or the small formal positions. Yes, you're the one who is managing the budget for the road that's to be built, the small project that the office has. People will say she has the financial skills to lead this organization, and boom, then you're able to get it. And from there on, then you're able to build politically. So for me, it's a journey. We don't just land in political spaces. And to be a respected woman leader who doesn't need the bribery, that doesn't need the SEX to be given the leg up, you need to invest in that. And all of it comes together because your attitude, the way you behave with people, the way you treat people, whether they're senior or whether they're not, in your leadership journey is what I think ultimately takes you there. So I hope that gives a vision. There's no clear you land in the positional. I think it's a bit of a journey. Should we aspire to positional? We must. I don't even think we have options. The few women in this room should be aiming for positional leadership. Yeah. So can I talk a little bit about the practice practical way we go about things in the cohorts, or
Yes,
you're cutting me off
yes,
here?
you can. You can, and
So
because you're also going to
I
what
want-
do you need to change. You're going to ask. You're going to
yes, exactly, and then you're going to chuck me after that. You can stop me. So I because what concerns me is why are our module 5s not popular, right? What is it we can do differently? So I actually had put down, I went back and I read a lot of the past reports that we have had. One is it's about, and let me say this, public service is about grace. It means you're not thinking about Rita, you're not thinking about Alan, you're thinking about other people. Dear mentors, there is no way we are going to successfully deliver public service if we ourselves are not doing it. So my encouragement is this. There are certain cohorts, and I won't name them, but in South Africa that have become famous for it, whereby before the cohort ends, before we get to session 6, they are already together doing public service. By the time you're teaching the process or the content of module 5, they already even get what you're talking about. I'm going to give you one example. In our first cohort at the University of Johannesburg in 2019, there was a young lady who has now become one of our best speakers and one of our best mentors, called Confidence. Confidence was listening to us and she said, listen, I am at a res at the University of Johannesburg, and I've noticed that a lot of people are dropping off. They have 50% scholarship from NSFAS, the guys who do the scholarship at tertiary level. They're going home because they have a scholarship to go to class, but they don't have food. They don't have groceries to buy underwear, to buy sanitary towels, they're dropping off. Literally, some of them in the final year. So she was listening to us. And then when we got to module 5, she said, ladies, you, the mentors, I'm challenging you. What can you do for the sisters who are they're dropping off, like literally in their last year? As a cohort, it was no longer who was mentor, who was mentee. Guess what happened? We said, what can we put together? What 2 rands can we put in the kitty? People brought food cans. We found a way. That became, it was living. There was no longer pretending to talk about concepts. We turned it into action. So that's the one thing for the mentors in the room. When you start session 1, listen to the mentees. What societal challenges are they talking about, and encourage them? The other mentee who did, I think, phenomenal work was in Tembisa, high density area. The school we were working at, their library burnt down. She said, ladies, let's put books together. Sheila Otieno, I don't know whether she's still here, gathered, I think, over 1,000 books. Put them together from all the G4G community. Guess what? The library is about ready to start. If we live it, then we are no longer having to convince people about public service, right? And then from there, that's how we support them. The other thing I would say is that for us as mentors to sponsor each other into positions. There are many recommendations I've now made for people to get into scholarship programs. There are many letters I'm sure Alan has written, you, Diana, have written to be the reference for people to get into board positions. That's why I say it's about grace. There are many ways we can support each other to enter positions to be able to serve society. So don't go home and say, I've delivered module 5, tick, I'm now waiting for module 6. Continue to ask yourself, how do I live module 5 every day? How do I support another sister in it? The last thing I wanted to say is how to hold a session around module 5.
You're buffering.
Because I think I've read a lot about this. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, but you might want to take off the video briefly.
Okay. So the last thing I want to say is about how to hold the module 5, because people are very uncomfortable. I've seen where, when we break into the small groups, people are like, oh my God, what am I going to say to the girls? One way we have come around this is by saying, let's just keep the group big. We actually just form one big circle. All 25 of us, we are now looking at each other and we kind of support each other, especially, through the small stories, the questions, the discomforts. We've found that if we feel our mentors are not comfortable running those small circles, 5 or 6, what we do is we keep it a big group so that we buffer each other, we support each other. So again, I just wanted to share like a very practical example in terms of how we face our imposter syndrome. Okay, it's a lot. I'm done now. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
A small one I added, role plays help depending on the mentee group and panel discussions. So we've had role plays in so many. If it's secondary school, they are really seeing how do they get in to talk to their parents, how do they, so how do they engage their teachers? So that leadership, what they need to do, a student leader, how do you then engage the teachers? So you can do a role play on how you could campaign for that. But if it's women in their 30s, 40s, especially board positions, you can do a role interview, a mock interview on preparing for your board application, So you can play around with this. What is the mentee group? Remember cardinal rule number 1 for art of communication? Who is your audience? Last week, I had to meet the king and queen of the Netherlands and had them for 10 minutes. I used only G4G principles about know your audience. I had to Google them and all. So know your audience. If your mentee group is young, this. And Kim, who is in Kazakhstan, know your audience. Malaysia, know your audience. The same for South Africa. It really helps a lot for the way you then manage the module. Yeah. What are the positions they want? Are they aspiring for? Is it NGO volunteerism in the early 20s and 30s to give you a track record? In the 30s, then you're starting to actually go for management positions, C-suite in the 40s, maybe, or 30s these days. Even 20s are now in the C-suite. So know your audience and prepare adequately. Back to the studio.
Sorry, and using mentees that have successfully, so you see Aliyah now becomes a speaker in subsequent cohorts. Confidence becomes a speaker. Ntabiseng becomes a speaker. It makes it more real and believable, achievable.
Thank you so much. Clearly, we're going back to the drawing board to redo the training on Module 5 and getting out these nuggets and just sharing them. And I think on politics, Alan, you posted something and you said, ladies, learn the rules of the game so that you can play it and you don't get left out. So thank you, Rita. Thank you, Alan.
Can I say something? Sorry, I know. There's something about the women's movement, about being nasty, about being unkind, about being unhelpful. Some of those are the realities. I've talked about hurting women, being hurtful. I've talked about the pain we carry into these spaces, and unfortunately, we turn it against others. I've also talked about our quest for perfectionism and how it makes us burn out and burn others. These are the things that actually people say, oh my God, what a bad boss you have. Oh, I'm so sorry. So we have to watch out for some of these things. Bad manners does not replace. Rita has talked a lot about grace. We need to go into these positions with grace. These positions are to serve. These positions are to make the world better. And I'll give one very small example of where positional leadership helped me change the trajectory for, say, Uganda. We did not have a domestic law, and we had lobbied and lobbied. In 2009, as the chairperson of the women lawyers, I mobilized the entire women's movement. We did a campaign where we listed all the women who had been killed by violence that year. 140 women had been killed. And we did not have a domestic law because the police always said, go and handle these things at home, go to your church, go to your imam. These matters are not for police, it's a matter for home. We marched to the parliament with this. I remember my mother was part of those who marched with me. She was 64 then. We had the banners and pictures of women who had been murdered. And we put this, the parliament stopped its session, came outside. We held a wake in the gardens of parliament. And that month, the law was passed and assented to by the president. Uganda now has a domestic violence law. Does it stop violence? No, but at least there's a law and a framework to address domestic violence when it happens. So leadership matters, position matters. Let's get women into position of power.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Kim has been very attentive, reacting to everything. Okay, so now I would love to invite Izana. I'd like to invite Izana. Izana, please just come in and share your thoughts. You are right at the helm. You're leading, seeing everything across the different countries play out. What are your thoughts? What should we take away from this module? And what do we have to change, maybe? What do we have to rethink? Izana?
Hi, Diana. Thank you so much for welcoming me. Ladies, Alan, Rita, Diana, you are all superstars. I was just texting into our Malaysian mentors group, and I was telling them, aren't these women amazing? And we all concur, you're inspiring this side of the world. So I won't take too long. I just want to firstly extend our appreciation for all of you, all 76 of us who show up on a weekend to improve our quality as leaders within the G4G ecosystem. It is, every time we show up, we take time away from our families and our, paying work to make this environment better. So I really appreciate that. I echo all that has been shared by Diana, Alan, and Rita, but what I do want to share is our experience here in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, our culture is very different than the North American culture, where we sat and discussed and ideated Girls for Girls, and very different than that of the African continent culture. From what I've seen, being good friends and sisters with Alan, and also sitting in a lot of the different cohorts and dealing with the leaders there. One of the things that we've had to deploy and remind our mentors here is that the values we espouse in G4G, being ambitious, speaking up, being clear, if not deployed properly in Malaysia, or at least in Southeast Asia, can actually backfire on the way we climb the ladder, whether it's political ladder or corporate ladder here, because the culture here is so different. They appreciate soft-spokenness, indirect conversation, low intonation from a woman, different types of dressing, and I'm sure you're very familiar. These are all the very Southeast Asian stereotypes. And unfortunately, I have to admit, it still persists. And one of the things that I experienced in the last 8 years of being back in Malaysia since our graduation at Harvard is that we've got to be smart. We know our goals. We know that it's important to take formal and informal positions. So how do we navigate based on what we learn in Module 3, Module 4, and Module 5? So in order for us to succeed here, we've got to be very strategic in deploying this. I'm in both the corporate and government/political space. And often we have to put on different roles. In the corporate space, when you're in the boardroom, you are very much welcomed to be strong and project your voice and chair the meeting, put your foot down when necessary in your integrity committees and things like that. If we tried that in the political space here, I would be buried a long time ago. And so when we enter the political space, my dressing changes, the level of my voice changes, how I speak, the words that I choose changes. And these are things that we share. And as Alan mentioned just now, it's about knowing our audience. And I'd like to add to that, knowing the culture. When I first came back, I was very much influenced by the American culture, having done my undergrad and my work experience there as well, that I tried to deploy that here. And that failed miserably. And so I learned very quickly and we pivoted. And today, I must say that the fruits of those seeds and the labor has come to fruition. And I don't see that with just me. I see that with some of the mentors here. We've got Shinmei, who's one of the C-suite leaders within the tech space. She embodies exactly what both men and women want to see in this part of the world. So that's how we angle Module 5 here. It's about being a bit more open. And Alan, you and I discussed this in the early days of deploying G4G. We moved our mission and vision from just being about public leadership to general leadership, because we realized along those lines that, thank you, Alan, it's very sweet. We realized along the lines that, firstly, not everybody's interested in politics. In Malaysia, entering political space means being ready for jail time, being ready for being charged. It is a dog-eat-dog world. And for women, we are the caretakers of our family, of our children. We think 10 times before entering such a space. And so we opened it up, and how we position Module 5 is, quote unquote, public service we can all serve. So we talk about community leadership. During the pandemic, huge amounts of community leadership was seen by the women. Women were setting up food distribution. Women were collecting funds to move it over to the B40 community. So we really highlighted that, and we found huge welcome from the market over here. We do cater to some political parties, but as I'm sure all of you know, we're apolitical. So I make sure we talk to as many political parties as possible, and we try to push. I shared with today's organizers how low our political participation is in Malaysia. We have one of the highest educational equality here in ASEAN, but the lowest in political participation. And as I mentioned to you, this is due to many reasons. Poor policies, poor care economy, but of course, the culture, patriarchy persists here. And interestingly, I'm not sure if this is the case within your continent, but it persists within the women who are enabling this as well. And so I really appreciate, I just thought I'd share a bit of insights from this part of the world. There's not that many of us from Malaysia, but rest assured, we have got a big team of mentors. Recently, we had a gathering of 50 of us, but our database is close to 100 at the moment. And I'm so inspired. I'm so inspired by all of you who are here. I hope that we can bring this energy into Asia, and I'm waiting for the day we all meet together again. Diana, back to you.
Thank you so much, Izana. And I think one of the things we all need to do is just reflect where you are and ask yourself, as we roll this out, does it fit? And just share with your country lead, share with your mentor leads, share with your peers, and let's have this conversation. This conversation cannot be completed today. Alan was talking about a deeper conversation of the politics of women in leadership and really doing an introspection, starting with ourselves. Am I that bad boss that people are whispering about in the corridor? And Barbara was asking, how do we change? How do we unlearn these bad manners? What are they to begin with? We had a few pointers. But Alan and Rita, I'll invite you to share your parting thoughts. Mine is definitely do not shy away from position of power. I think although I hold so many positions, I do shy away, and I really need to own it and then use that power to do the good things, we're called to do as leaders, male or female. So Arita, I'll start with you, and then Alan, I'll invite you to share your parting thoughts.
So I already shared what was going to be my parting thought. It's about grace. And I think that's, even when we had the planning for this session, I talked about it that way. This module is about giving back, and we need to figure out how each of us charts our pathway towards it. I think what I've loved about it is Alan emphasizing that the positional leadership is where we want to get to. My chip in or my addition is that it's okay to start anywhere, right? You don't have to start by being a board member. You don't have to start by first achieving the position and then doing good. My parting shot is that look for the opportunities that allow you to do the informal leadership whilst eyeing and aiming for the positional leadership and demonstrating it and living it together with the village that will allow you in the most comfortable space to start asserting your leadership capabilities. So that is all I would ask. Remember, it's about grace. It is about others. We have been empowered. So let's give back and let's look for those opportunities and let's work together in our comfortable villages to be able to start charting the way towards the positional leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Your Aliyah from South Africa is echoing your exact words. Clearly, the message is strong in South Africa. Make sure you create that space for yourself and for others and give back. Alan, what should we remember from today's conversation?
So other than the fact that you and Rita planned on a hairstyle and I had a different one, at least I'm matching with Debbie, who I can see on my screen. And the guy cut my hair so badly yesterday, but I'll survive. I'm a survivor. But let me just say this. My dad was a civil servant turned politician. He failed miserably. He really struggled. He couldn't tell lies. And we know politics, you have to be able to bend the truth a bit. And so he died just shortly after he did one term and then he died. And so when I went to Harvard, in my mind, think about it, I thought maybe I could become a politician and take after my dad. But I came back for Christmas holidays, the Christmas holiday, and I remember I went to the village and I just remember being surrounded by all these community people wanting to do so much. much. Oh my God, this, that. And I said, Alan, I don't have the patience. I know I cannot lie. I will be the first one to just say something out. Really, this is not my path. And I went back to Harvard with the tail between my legs. But I realized I could serve in so many ways. And for me, G4G has been the most beautiful platform for service. Through G4G, we are creating leaders. We are empowering girls to take those dreams and act on them. For me, it has been the realization of so many dreams. I'm also doing this in so many other sectors, like with women finance. I helped support women to take groups, financial savings groups. So I've realized that I actually have the power to empower others. I don't have to be the one in parliament. So I realized that dream is not going to happen because I cannot tell those lies. I cannot really bend the truth. And we all know that the politics, especially in Africa, is really tough. You have to bend to the whims of the party. I am very independent and outspoken. I have learned that about myself. But does that stop me from wanting to serve? No. I can find spaces where I can serve. I've realized that on boards of corporations, I can make a difference. I've realized that through G4G, it's my premier space to actually make a global difference. And so for me, do not wait for that platform. You have the opportunity to create it. But don't forget, you have to do it with so many others. Without my village, without the sisters surrounding me here, the go-to people who I have, we would never have had G4G if it were not for all the mentors and the village that we have surrounded ourselves with. We might have had a powerful dream with Izana and our friends and sisters, but would not have gotten far. Maybe would have mentored 100 girls and done with our lives. But because we've created villages, we have the most amazing sisters, this is where we are. So thank you, sisters. Thank you for believing in us. Let us continue to do the most amazing magic in this world. Have a
Thank
happy
you so much.
Saturday.
All right, so just unmute your videos. Let's take a photo with those of you who are still on. And Santa, thank you so much for making us, get here and keep us here. I'm very, very grateful to you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Rita. Rita is one who conceived this idea, this deep dive. I'm just waiting for everyone to get their video on. Santa, I believe you will do us the honors. It's so good to see you, ladies. Josephine.
Oh my God, I'm seeing so many posts in Azo.
Yes.
Oh my God, Jeanette, I
Harriet,
missed you, I
hello.
think. Oh my gosh.
All the way from
Jackie,
Ethiopia.
oh my.
Lisa,
Guys, you are all
good to
quiet
see
all
you.
along. Marianne in Ethiopia, oh my goodness.
All
It's a
right, can
global
we have more
village.
photos on, Santa? I think you can begin to take photos. Just
Wow.
smile into your camera, ladies. If you're holding a phone, smile into your camera. If you have a laptop, look directly into the lens of your camera and smile, smile, smile. We have 3 pages, so you don't know which page you'll be on. Smile, send some love.
I'm so happy, my God, seeing you ladies. You're my sisters, our village. Oh, I might cry, but yeah, I love you all.
Santa, are
This
you okay?
is so emotional. Yeah. See what we have created together. There is Barbara.
The first
She's like on page 3, I think. Barbara, what's are you doing on page 3?
second screen now. Smile.
Wow.
And then I'm taking the third screenshot. Okay, smile, everyone. All right. Have a blessed Saturday, wherever you are. And for our sisters who are Muslims, we wish you all the best as we celebrate Eid. And thank you so much. Jeanette, thank you so much for bringing your daughter onto the call.
Bye. Blessings.
Sana, thank you.
Anita, protect my home. Oh, there is Harriet. Namuchana. Oh my God. You guys, I love you all so much. Wow. And new ones that I'm meeting today.
Susanna, thank you.
Yeah.
What happened to the haircut?
The guy, I think he got the message wrong. I told him trim and he decided to cut. I think I used different language. And so the cut went so deep, but I'm all right. I'm all right. I tried to look for all the wigs Anita had lent me. Anita has gotten me some wigs, but they couldn't fit. So in between trying to get a wig and getting a heat wave, I decided to just be myself. So
Yeah,
here
but
I
you
am.
do it, so it's fine. Fine. Yeah. Gotta take care. Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye. Sinazo, bye. So good to see you after a long time. Doris, gosh, you sisters. It sounds amazing seeing everyone on. Take care, ladies.
the YouTube link. Santa, stop the
Diana, Alan, are we doing a
Bye.
touch base?
Yes.
Yes, we can do a quick one.
Okay.
Gloria Santa, please stop the YouTube live.
It has stopped, I think.